The frantic crowd of Black Friday has always been a spectacle at the Walmart in Springfield, Illinois. The air was a blend of excitement and frenzy as customers sought to get their hands on the best deals. However, in 2010, Black Friday became synonymous with terror and fear when a series of kidnappings shook the entire town. The day started like any other Black Friday. People crowded at the gates well before opening, eager to begin their shopping. Among the crowd was also Mary Lou Patterson, a single mother who was hoping to find good deals for her 3 children's Christmas gifts. Mary Lou rushed into the store with the rest of the crowd when the gates opened. She split up from her children, planning to meet up at the electronics section an hour later. But when the time came, her children did not show up. At first, Mary Lou thought that her children had been distracted by some game or gadget. But when 30 minutes passed without any trace of them, she began to worry. Her worry turned into terror when, despite her desperate search, she couldn't find them. The police were alerted, and the store was immediately shut down. As the news spread, other families began to realize that they too had lost members. By the end of the day, 8 children had disappeared without a trace. The police began a desperate search, analyzing the security footage from Walmart. Despite their efforts, they couldn't find any evidence of the kidnappers. Fear spread throughout the city as residents wondered who was responsible and if their children would be next. The investigation seemed headed for a dead end when an investigator noticed something strange in the recordings. A hooded man appeared in the footage every time a child disappeared. He was not an employee of the store, and no one seemed to recognize him. The police released the man's images to the press, asking for the public's help in identifying him. The story was reported across the country, and within days, an anonymous informant called the police station, identifying the man as Eddie Gruber, a former convict with a long list of petty crimes. The police rushed to the address provided by the informant, an old farm outside town. There, they made a shocking discovery: the kidnapped children were alive and well, locked in a hidden room in the farm's cellar. Eddie was immediately arrested, and during interrogations, he admitted to planning the kidnappings for months, using the chaos of Black Friday to cover his tracks. He said he acted out of vengeance, believing that society had turned its back on him. The news of the children's discovery and Eddie's arrest lifted a sigh of relief across the city. The children were returned to their families, and the following year's Black Friday was monitored more closely than ever. Yet, Walmart, once a theater of frantic commercial activity and savings, had become a place that evoked chills down people's spines. No longer a temple of convenience, it had become a monument to terror, a silent echo of a past people would have liked to forget. Customers' eyes darted nervously among the shelves, as if seeking hidden shadows among the discounted products. And so, when the air of November charges with the excitement of the upcoming Black Friday, Springfield takes a collective breath. The city clings to hope, praying that the shadows of its past remain there, trapped in a story they hope to never have to recount again. For decades, the Walmart in Belflower, a small town in the heart of America, had been the hub of the community. A gathering place, a space where residents could find everything they needed. But in 2021, a series of inexplicable events changed everything. It all began one evening in March. The store manager received an anonymous phone call announcing a bomb inside the Walmart. The police were immediately alerted, and the store was evacuated. After hours of searching, however, no bomb was found. The entire community was shocked, wondering who could make such a threat and what could be the motive behind such a cruel gesture. A month later, on an ordinary day, a customer suddenly shouted, claiming to have seen an armed man wandering among the aisles. The police were called again, but once again, nothing was found. Tension rose, and the residents of Belflower began to live in constant anxiety of a possible attack. The events started repeating themselves, with increasing frequency. Each time, the police would intervene, evacuate the store, search for evidence, but they never found anything. There were no bombs, no armed individuals, no kidnappers. Only frightened customers and disturbed employees. The community felt like a prisoner of an invisible and insidious threat. Then, on a cold morning in November, a fire broke out in the Walmart's warehouse. The flames were extinguished in time, but the damage was extensive. Yet, even in this case, the cause of the fire could not be determined. Pressing questions arose: who or what was behind this series of unsettling events? Was it a saboteur? A psychopathic troublemaker? Or perhaps there was a darker motive behind it all? At this point, fear had taken root in the town. Customers began to avoid Walmart. Even employees became increasingly reluctant to work. Despite reassurances from the police and store management, the palpable fear persisted. Anyone could be the next to make a terrifying discovery or live through a frightening experience. The sense of security and trust in their community had been shattered. Investigations intensified. The police interrogated people, analyzed surveillance camera footage, but despite all efforts, no significant leads emerged. The community lived in a state of constant apprehension, keeping their eyes open and looking out for one another. In the end, the company decided to close the Walmart in Belflower. Despite the investigations, the responsible party for the unsettling events was never found. There were no evidence, no suspects. Only a shadow of fear that had infiltrated the daily life of the small community. It was as if Walmart had become a cursed place, imbued with terror and uncertainty. And even with the store closed, the Belflower community continued to bear the weight of the unexplained events that had disrupted their lives. Fear persisted, along with a series of unanswered questions. Rumors began circulating among the residents of Belflower about a suspicious person, an individual who had gone through several job interviews at Walmart but had never been hired. Some residents swore they had frequently seen this person lurking around the store, observing surreptitiously and wandering among the shelves. This testimony sparked a wave of concern in the community, fueling the belief that there might be a connection between the mysterious individual and the unsettling events that had struck the Belflower Walmart. The local authorities, attentive to the concerns of the citizens, decided to interrogate the suspicious individual. He was summoned for a thorough questioning, during which he was asked about his visits to Walmart and his presence during the troubling incidents. However, despite the doubts surrounding him, there was not enough evidence to arrest him or impose precautionary measures. The lack of solid evidence hindered the efforts of the authorities to solve the mystery surrounding the Belflower Walmart. Despite the insistence of the community and the determination of law enforcement to deliver justice, the suspicious individual remained an elusive figure, always present in the collective imagination but without any proven responsibility. In the heart of Texas, in the peaceful town of Plainview, stands the majestic Walmart store, a true hub for the daily lives of its residents. However, behind the apparent normality of this community lies a macabre story, a dark chapter that deeply shook the entire city. This is the story of Travis Miller, a quiet Walmart cashier who turned into a ruthless killer. Travis Miller, at the age of 28, was a familiar face among the residents of Plainview. His friendliness and gentle smile made him a beloved cashier among the Walmart customers. No one could have ever imagined that behind that amiable facade lay a gruesome obsession. The shocking story began on a late summer afternoon. The residents of Plainview were deeply shaken when 5 people, all regular Walmart customers, disappeared within a few months. Law enforcement's investigation efforts were frantic, but no trace of the missing individuals was found. The community was gripped by fear and paranoia, wondering who could be responsible for these heinous crimes. Everything changed one evening, when a loyal Walmart customer stumbled upon an unsettling scene in the store's parking lot. As he loaded groceries into the trunk of his car, he noticed a young man, Travis Miller, hastily trying to conceal something suspicious in a large black bag. The man was deeply disturbed by what he had witnessed and decided to take action. He immediately contacted the authorities, providing them with a detailed description of what he had seen. The Plainview police promptly responded to the report and quickly made their way to Travis Miller's home to investigate any possible connection to the mysterious disappearances. When the officers crossed the threshold of Travis' house, they were met with an eerie atmosphere. The walls were adorned with sinister paintings, casting a chilling shadow over the scene. In the basement of the house, the policeman made a horrifying discovery. The lifeless bodies of the missing individuals were carefully preserved and wrapped in black bags. The sight of this gruesome scene sent shivers down the officers' spines, confirming the community's worst fears. Travis Miller was immediately arrested and taken to the police station for questioning. In front of the investigators, his friendly facade vanished, revealing his true merciless nature. With a disconcerting calmness, he confessed to being responsible for the disappearances and murders. Travis coldly explained that he had exploited his position as a Walmart cashier to carefully study his victims. He observed regular customers who seemed to live alone or appeared particularly vulnerable. After his work shift, he discreetly followed them, waiting for the opportune moment to strike and erase them from the face of the earth. The news of Travis' arrest quickly spread throughout the community, unleashing a wave of shock and fear. The image of the young, smiling cashier transformed into that of a heartless monster. Local and national media wasted no time in giving a name to this terrorizing figure, the cashier of death. The city of Plainview was thrust into the media frenzy, while the entire nation followed the developments of this terrible ordeal with horror. The presence of Walmart in Plainview underwent a radical change. People began entering the store with apprehension, constantly suspicious and constantly looking over their shoulders. What was once associated with convenience and everyday routine became a symbol of the darkness that can lurk even in the most mundane and familiar places. Local authorities took significant measures to reassure the community and prevent similar tragedies in the future. Additional security measures were implemented throughout the city. Surveillance cameras were installed both in Walmart and in the surrounding areas, keeping a vigilant eye on any suspicious activity. The police increased their night patrols, ensuring a constant and reassuring presence. Despite the precautions taken, fear and unease persisted within the Plainview community. The memory of the terrible events linked to the cashier of death continued to cast a dark shadow over the city's daily life. Every trip to Walmart was accompanied by constant anxiety and vigilance, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the presence of evil even in the most ordinary situations. In the heart of Central America, there's a little town called Hollis, known for its tranquility and ancient rustic beauty. Standing in the middle of Hollis is a Walmart store, a gathering spot for local inhabitants and occasional visitors. But beneath the blinding neon lights and welcoming atmosphere, there lies a horrific tale, a dark occurrence that has cast a long shadow over the store's reputation. Susan Redford was a hard-working woman loved by her community. A mother of 2 children, a widow, and devout, she had found work as a night janitor at Walmart. Despite the unusual hours, she appreciated the silence and solitude of the nights, away from the daytime bustle. One freezing January night in 1998, as she was cleaning the deserted shelves of the grocery section, she heard a distant noise. A dull sound, seeming to originate from the toy department. Thinking that some product had fallen, she headed towards the sound to check. As she approached, the noise morphed into a baby's cry, a heart-wrenching sound that echoed through the empty aisles. Her heart was racing, but her maternal instinct pushed her forward. When she reached the department, the flickering neon lights made the atmosphere even more spectral. She searched for the source of the crying, but there was no one. At that moment, a whisper, a child's voice saying, "Mommy, help me." She spun around, but once again, there was no one. Scared, she ran away from the toy department, dropping her bucket and mop. Back at her station, she told her colleagues about the incident the next morning. The story spread like wildfire among the employees, creating an atmosphere of fear and suspense. In the following days, other oddities started to occur. Toys moved, lights flickering on and off by themselves, and the baby's cry heard sporadically. Some employees, disturbed, resigned, unable to bear the climate of fear. Eventually, one of the employees decided to research the property's history. He discovered that before the construction of the Walmart, an old farmhouse stood there where, in the 60s, a family tragically died in a fire. The only survivor had been a boy named Timothy, who was subsequently adopted by a distant family. The discovery reinforced the belief that Timothy's spirit was still bound to that place, haunting the aisles of Walmart searching for his lost mother. Despite the reassurances from the management and visits from various exorcists and mediums, stories of sightings and strange noises didn't cease. Some customers and employees claimed to have had unsettling experiences, especially during the cold winter nights. The Hollis Walmart thus became a place of legend and mystery, a place that sparked both fear and fascination. And while the shelves kept being restocked and customers continued to come and go, the tale of the ghost child searching for his mother continued to persist, making Walmart much more than a mere store. In the town of Woodbridge, New Jersey, everyone knew Old Joe. His real name was Joseph Manders, but to everyone, he was simply Old Joe, the beggar who had staked his territory outside the local Walmart for years. Joe was an elderly man with silver, long hair, a face marked by time, and a sharp, penetrating gaze. He seemed to always be there, sitting on an old cardboard, regardless of the weather or time of day. He would ask Walmart customers for spare change, but not persistently. If ignored, he would remain calm. At least, that's how it appeared. Then, in the winter of 2022, strange events began to unfold. Residents of Woodbridge started disappearing without a trace. The first was a middle-aged woman named Margaret Stevens, who never returned home after a visit to Walmart. Then it was a young student, Derek Young, followed by an elderly lady, Helen Murphy. All vanished after visiting Walmart. The police launched an investigation but failed to find any clues or connections among the victims. Fear gripped the town, and Walmart became a place many tried to avoid. Meanwhile, Old Joe continued to beg as if nothing had changed. It was on a cold February afternoon that a breakthrough finally occurred. Officer Ricardo Hernandez, on duty, noticed that one of the missing victims, Margaret Stevens, had passed by Joe without giving him any spare change. Ricardo remembered the scene because he was struck by Joe's intense and furious gaze. Based on this observation, the police began to focus their investigation on Old Joe. Suspicions grew as relatives and friends of the victims were interviewed. They all reported negative interactions with Old Joe. Some spoke of arguments, others of disapproving glances or snide comments. It seemed that Joe targeted those who didn't give him money. But concrete evidence was lacking, and Joe continued to sit outside Walmart, waiting. The police decided to keep a closer eye on him, hoping to catch him in the act. However, Joe didn't appear to be doing anything suspicious. Then, one night, Joe disappeared. His usual spot outside Walmart was empty. The police raided his shabby shack on the outskirts of town, but Joe was nowhere to be found. They did find something horrific, though: photos of the victims, newspaper clippings about their disappearances, and, most chilling of all, personal belongings of the victims. The details indicated a deeper connection between Joe and the missing individuals. Old Joe was never found. His victims were never recovered. The Walmart building in Woodbridge became a grim reminder of what had transpired, a place of sadness and fear. And even though Old Joe was no longer there, his presence still lingered. Every person passing by Walmart could feel his invisible eyes upon them, sending a cold shiver down their spines. A haunting reminder that sometimes evil hides in the most ordinary places and people, waiting. The Woodbridge community was shaken by the disappearances, and people lived in constant anxiety, wondering who would be the next to vanish. Conversations in local cafes and neighborhood meetings were dominated by theories and hypotheses about the victims' fates and Old Joe's possible culpability. Some suggested that Joe possessed some dark power or curse that allowed him to make people vanish. Others thought he might be involved in a secret criminal organization or some bizarre scientific experiment. Meanwhile, Walmart in Woodbridge experienced a drastic decline in customers. People avoided the store, fearing its proximity could attract the attention of the presumed killer. The once crowded parking lot grew increasingly empty, and open cash registers became fewer. Walmart's management attempted to reassure the community, but fear had deeply rooted itself. The police search continued for months, but each lead turned out to be a dead end. Despite phone taps, DNA evidence, and interrogations, the case remained unsolved. Many in the Woodbridge community felt that the truth would never emerge. Despite it all, life in the town gradually resumed. People started going back to Walmart, albeit cautiously. Volunteer groups formed to organize nighttime patrols, ensuring the safety of residents. The community came together, trying to overcome the horror and rebuild a sense of normalcy. But as time passed, the mystery of the disappearances and the fate of Old Joe remained shrouded in darkness. The Walmart in Woodbridge became a symbol of a sinister past and an uncertainty that continued to cast a shadow over the town. Many in the community wondered if Old Joe was still alive and whether he would ever reclaim his spot outside Walmart. Some feared he might return, even more ruthless and determined than before. Others hoped he had been captured or had left the town for good. But regardless of the truth, the Walmart in Woodbridge would forever be linked to that dark and haunting period, a constant reminder of the missing people and the unresolved mysteries.